Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to do a little recap on the Argent Saga Championship that took place in Orlando this weekend. We're going to go over the top 8 because it was 69 players or 70 players, and they cut to the top 8 instead of top 16. So we'll go over the top 8 decks, and then we'll go into those decks kind of individually and do a little deeper dive, okay? So let's take a look at our top 8, guys. We had 3 Liam Kite decks. We had 2 Airgun Fizzy decks, we had 2 Jamal Sola decks, and 1 Jillian Sola deck. So a pretty diverse top 8, actually. We expected a lot of Liam Kite and a lot of Airgun in the top 8. I actually thought Airgun Luna was going to be the top choice, but Airgun Fizzy actually was the one that got in there. And then we also had 3 Blue-White, which was actually very surprising to me. I thought the meta was going to be extremely fast, but it seems that Control has a decent matchup in the meta. So, Liam Kite did end up taking first place. It was a mirror match in the finals, so you had 2 Liam Kite decks battling it out for first, and Vinny Silverman, I believe his name is, won the event, so congratulations to him. He played Ryan Valentino, which is, I think both those players are top players in the game right now, so, I mean, well-deserving of them. So what we've ended up seeing with this format, at least out of Orlando, is it's kind of a triangle format. Liam Kite ends up having a decent matchup against Airgun. Airgun doesn't run a whole lot of defense, and Liam, if they get out Repper turn 2, it's going to snowball quickly. On the other hand, Airgun has a pretty decent matchup against Jillian because they run things like Demon of the Evil Eye to pick cards out of Jillian's hand. They also run Catastrophe Demon, which forces blue-white players to have their units and their shards come into play tapped. That's something. And then also Airgun itself, if blue-white doesn't have Bone Scavenger, Airgun can just keep putting big monsters back on the top of its deck each turn whenever it gets to the late game, and that's something that blue-white can't really deal with unless they have something like Chronostasis. So, and then on the other hand, you have blue-white that has a pretty good matchup against Liam Kite because they run certain cards like Finishing Ray, Chronostasis, Reactive Runes that put things back on top, and then they can deal with tokens fairly easily. So, that's kind of what you saw there. But now I want to dig in a little bit to each of these decks and maybe look at the similarities that the players had with each other, some of the differences, and some of their tech choices, right? So Liam Kite is the first 3 decks we're going to look at. So the similarities between the 3 decks were they all ran the same green package. All 3 Liam Kite decks in the top 8 all ran 3 Kaze, 3 Vabriel's Gift, and 2 Guiding Winds. So we kind of saw this coming for the green side. All 3 of these cards pretty much help Repper Bloom, and that's the key strategy of Liam Kite. So why not run these 3 green cards? They're your best bet, right? Also, obviously, they all ran Repper Bloom. It's a key piece of the deck, really. You don't really revolve around gears or anything like that. It's Repper Bloom. The gears do help Repper Bloom with creating tokens and things like that, but Repper Bloom is the key piece of the deck. They all ran Finishing Ray. Obviously, it's the main reason to run light, whether it's a main or a supporting color right now. Something that actually surprised me was all 3 players actually ran 3 Corn War Room, and this surprised me because I thought the format was going to be extremely fast, but it seems that some control decks can live here, which makes the format a little slower than I thought it would. And in that case, Quorum War Room is actually very good because it just gets better to the mid to the late game. It's not as good early game because you don't want to really be spending 2 shards to get it out. You want to be focusing on Repper Bloom. And then also they ran similar gears. I'm not going to go over them. Just go take a look at the deck list. I'll put the link in the description below. So some differences, actually. 2 decks actually main deck Raging Shard Beast. This was very interesting, and they did this by prioritizing Raging Shard Beast over Yuki. One of the main decks did main deck Yuki, and then the other side of it, they were running the Raging Shard Beast instead. This really surprised me. I thought Yuki was a sure, like a shoe-in for light green. I run Yuki in almost everything I run, but I'm a little more aggro-based, so I think that's why I prioritize it. And I like how it's an out to Rep and Bloom. But anyway, so that's something to note. And then some of the tech choices that they used. Eccentric Visitor, they each ran at least one, I believe. I think almost all the decks in top 8 ran at least one Eccentric Visitor. I don't know why you wouldn't. But something to note, Great Behemoth was also in here. This was something that Ryan Valentino ran. I don't think Vinny or Nori, who was the other Liam Kite player. So he had like 3 really good players playing Liam Kite, ran Great Behemoth, but I know Ryan did. Silver Mist Phoenix was actually a side deck card in Ryan's deck, so it was a very interesting choice for sure. So next is Airgun Fizzy. So some similarities between the 2 Airgun Fizzy players. Again, they kind of ran the same water package. The only difference was one of the players chose to ran 3 Ayakuma Juggernaut, while the other one ran 2 and then main decked a Shards of Winter. The other thing is they both ran Golem of Devourment or Allurement. They both ran Hellish Guardhound, which I thought was an interesting tech choice. And then they both ran Delayed Poison. Now, the Golem of Allurement is obviously for Bone Scavenger or tokens. And then the Delayed Poison is for the Bone Scavenger. So you need to main deck those things because Bone Scavenger is a real problem. And then one of the most surprising things to me was neither player ran any of the Gargoyle engines. So they didn't run Gigath, Granite, Pewter, or Obsidian Gargoyle, which was very, very surprising to me. So some of the differences, I only have one thing here, and it's an interesting one. One of the players actually main decked Argent Egg, and he didn't run Bone Scavenger, and then the other one ran Bone Scavenger and didn't run Argent Egg. But I thought that was pretty interesting tech choice. With that being said, let's move on to some of their tech choices. They also ran Eccentric Visitors. One of them main decked Silverstone Sentinel, which is a very good card right now. I think I recommended it being your side deck with my last video. Both players either main decked or side decked the Debilitating Miasmas. This is pretty decent to get rid of, a Rep or Bloom and some tokens, or just 2 tokens. It's a pretty strong card right now, for sure. And then both either chose to side deck or main deck. I think one of the guys main deck Dust Strike, while the other one sided 2 copies or something like that. So some interesting tech choices for the Airgun Fizzy decks. So for the blue-white decks, we're going to go over both at the same time, Jamal and Jillian with Sola. So the similarities, each player, similar story with the other decks, is they all kind of had the same sub-package. So their Spirit package was very similar. They ran Finishing Rays, Kara the Lone Valkyrie, and then the Omega Magic Hikari. No players ran Stormcaster of the Azure Tower, which I thought was kind of funny because Airgun Fizzy ran Stormcaster, which is more of a control card, and then the control decks weren't running it. So that was something that I found interesting. And some of the differences. So the Jamal players actually ran the Mara and Animated Spellbook package. That's the one where Mara, you reveal 2 spells in your hand, and then you can bring out an Animated Spellbook card from your deck onto the field. So it's a little more aggro version of blue, while the Jillian deck actually preferred things like Reactive Runes and Chronostasis. Like it revolved more around the spells for removal than actual monsters. So now for some tech choices, and this is usually where the spice comes in. So Tafiel Fallen Celestial was actually main decked by Eric Goodwin. He was one of the players that topped with Jamal Sola. He main decked this, and bold move, Cotton. It paid off, though, so good for Eric. I like blue so much because you tend to be able to run these huge bombs in them because you can get to the late game with control decks. So it's always nice to look at some blue decks and see some of the spice that's in there. And Eric did not let me down. He also main decked Crystal Dimensional Dragon, which is the 10-drop dragon that allows you to... your opponent can't really play anything on their next turn. So also another cool tech. Great Behemoth. This goes very nicely with the Mara and Animated Spellbook package. It helps Behemoth get out pretty quick and then boosts those little guys up to 1,500 so they can break towers. And then the last tech choice was actually ran in the Jillian Sola deck by Dennis Gleason. He main decked 3 of these, so congratulations to him. That's pretty much the breakdown of the decks, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's just a small little recap. Anyone who was there, I hope you had fun. If it was your first time, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've only gone to one of these as well, and I just had a blast. I will be going to Texas, and then I'm going to go to the Las Vegas event at the end of February as well. So I'll be able to get 2 in here in the next 2 months, which I'm really excited about, and I'm hoping I do well at those events. But like I said, anyone who competed, let me know how you did in the comments section below. And as always, like, comment, subscribe. Zeppelin out.